here with the Orange County Sheriff's Office. I am the storyteller here at the Sheriff's Office, and today we're going to take a tour of our forensics unit. But before I start, I want to thank everybody who joined us yesterday for our live tour. It was our first live tour here at the Sheriff's Office, and we are out at the Mounted Stables, and we had a ton of fun out there. We had about 10,000 views so far on Facebook, so if you missed that one, you can scroll down in our feed, you can find it there, and check that out and see all the questions. We had a really great time, and so we want to keep doing these because we know a lot of people are at home, we know a lot of students are at home, and so we want to show off what we do here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. So if you like what you see, share it to all your friends and family who are all over the country that are staying at home. We actually have a stay-at-home order right now in Orange County, and so we hope everybody is staying at home and listening to that. But I'm super excited today for the forensics unit because I get to come down here every now and then and kind of see all the cool stuff that they do. And so I want to bring you over here. We know we're trying to keep distance when we do these videos, and this is sort of a narrow hallway, but I have the forensics supervisor, Vanessa Nylander. Hello, Vanessa.
Hello.
And so we're going to have her sort of explain kind of what we do here at forensics. And if you have any questions, type them into the comments. We'll get to all the questions, or as many as we can during this live stream. I also know there's a lot of Boy Scout troops and Girl Scout troops that are that need to do this for an elective, I believe, or for a patch or a badge. And so if this counts, maybe it does for your particular troop. We hope you tune in, we hope you share it, we hope you watch it. And so right now we're actually in Central Ops, which is at John Young Parkway and West Colonial Drive. This is sort of our headquarters here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. And the forensics unit is on the first floor. And I have Antoine Daniels behind the camera here. Say hi, Antoine.
Good morning.
Hello. And so this is kind of what you see. Let me move the camera here a little bit here. This is when you come down to forensics, this is the first thing you see. There's sort of a receptionist desk and a telephone, and there's a reason for that because you can't just walk in to the forensics unit. And I want to have Vanessa explain this. So Vanessa, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to come here and get buzzed in?
The forensics unit is actually a secured facility within our organization. We limit our access because we do have evidence within our office that has to maintain its integrity. In order to keep that integrity, we have all of our visitors sign in, and they must be escorted throughout our unit. Our evidence stays at certain areas and within the laboratory space, and then we also have our desk space, which is mainly only for working on reports and other administrative duties that we have.
Yeah, so you don't want people like me contaminating all the evidence, and you want me to sign in and make sure everything's good.
Correct.
All right.
You sign in and you grab an escort.
So maybe explain, what's the role of forensics here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
The role of forensics is to help in criminal investigations. We aid our detectives and all of our criminal processing by finding physical evidence out on crime scenes or physical evidence that's brought to us. We look for sources of DNA, for sources of fingerprints, possible fingerprints that can help identify a suspect. Give that information, share that information with a detective, and they apply it to the information they've obtained from witnesses, suspects, victims that are associated with those scenes.
So Vanessa, how did you end up in forensics? How long have you worked here at the Sheriff's Office?
I will complete my 18th year this coming July. I got into forensics in high school. I went to high school in South Florida. We had a criminal justice academy, and one of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office DNA analysts came, spoke with our class, and since that moment I was hooked. I came up to UCF, which at the time had one of the only forensics programs in the United States. Shortly after graduation, I was lucky to find a job in forensics here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and I stayed. I love every single minute of it. It brings me joy to know that I'm helping people resolve their cases, bring closure to issues that may have come up in their lives, and I hope to continue the rest of my career here.
And it's exactly like CSI, right?
Not quite.
It's a little bit different. And we're going to get into all that. We're going to show you all this. So if you're just joining us, we're doing a live tour of the forensics unit here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. This is Forensics Supervisor Vanessa Nylander. We're going to meet some people that work here at the forensics unit. If you got any questions, type them in. We'll try to get to as many as we can. And if you missed yesterday's live stream, go back and watch that after this one's done, of course. So after you've sort of checked in and somebody buzzes you in, we're going to walk in here. Let's see what happens next. So come join us. So somebody has to actually physically open this door or let you in. I have a badge, but even I'm not allowed back here without somebody letting me in. So this is sort of the area where you got to sign in, right?
Yes, this is our reception area. So this is where you would sign in. You would meet with the forensics personnel that you're here to assist you with your question, and you're escorted across our lab. Only people who are in forensics are allowed in the lab spaces.
And so when you say people, it's not just civilians, it's everybody. Everybody that comes into this building, this area, has to go through this process.
Correct.
So I'm going to sign in real quick. And like I said, I've done this several times where I have to come in and put my name on there so they know I'm back here. So let's talk about crime. Let's say something happens. Let's say there's a crime in Orange County. We'll say a homicide. Let's walk through the steps. What happens? What does your unit do?
Our unit will receive a phone call requesting our services out on the scene. Like he said, it could be anywhere from a burglary case, a homicide case, a deputy-involved shooting, any crime scene that needs our assistance. We'll get the call, we'll respond out to the scene, we'll document the scene, we'll collect evidence, we'll process the scene for DNA, fingerprints, whatever needs to be done. We then come back to the office and we go into our lab spaces. As you can see, this is one of our lab spaces here where one of our CSI is currently working on evidence that she collected out from one of her investigations earlier in the week. She has to itemize the items, she has to process them for fingerprints, swab them for DNA. Once she's done thoroughly documenting those items, then at that point that evidence can be taken to our evidence unit where it will be stored until court.
So how many people work in this unit?
We have 27 total people in our unit. We have the majority of them are crime scene investigators, and we do have some people who do work in the lab. Out of the 27 people, only 3 of them are men. It's just the luck of the way that everything functions. The majority of the people who are interested in forensics are females. So most of our applicant pools do come from females. Just because they are mainly females doesn't make the investigation any different or any better. We have a high priority on educational requirements, experience requirements when it comes to hiring people, because we want the best of the best working for Orange County.
And that's a good question. How does one become a crime scene investigator? What do you got to do?
We recommend that you get a science degree. Forensics is termed as the application of science to the law. So you do have to have a science background to know how chemical works, to know what the best process is to get you the best evidence in your crime scene investigation. So if you are interested in being a crime scene investigator, we urge you to get a science degree in biology, chemistry, physics, and even forensic science.
And do you get a lot of applicants or graduates from UCF? Is it like a Florida thing, or do you get them from all over the country?
We get applicants from all over the country. We are fortunate that we do have UCF, who has a forensics program here locally in Orange County, but we do also get applicants from West Virginia. We've gotten some from Tennessee, from California, from all over the United States.
So you were saying earlier, let's say a crime happens in Orange County, and you're called out there. What do the CSI, or the crime scene investigators, do once they get out to a scene?
When they get out to a scene, it depends on the extent of the scene. The majority of our function is to photograph the scene, make sure that we have photographic evidence of what the scene looked like when we responded out there. Depending on what the circumstance is, we could process looking for fingerprints, we could swab items for DNA, because there are lots of sources of DNA out in the world with the technology that we have nowadays. We can get DNA from a lot of different items. We also have to make sure that we protect ourselves when we're out there, not only because of the COVID-19 that's out there. We're always constantly wearing masks, we're wearing gloves, changing them often, just to make sure that we limit that contamination of the scene and of ourselves as well. As you could see with CSI Shay, she's wearing a mask to protect her evidence. She switches out her gloves when she's in between items just to make sure that there's no cross-contamination.
Are you taking any extra precautions because of COVID-19 or coronavirus right now?
Wearing masks and gloves is a typical part of our day, especially when we're out on scene. So it's a normal practice for us to begin with. The type of mask we use may be a little bit more powerful than our everyday mask, but other than that, it's business as usual for us.
So Vanessa, can you maybe explain what's she doing here? I see her writing things. I see she has gloves and masks on. I mean, what exactly is she doing?
She just finished processing an item for DNA. So she took 2 sterile swabs from a package and she rubbed those swabs up against her evidence in order to... Can you
get in here real quick, Antoine? I'm sorry to interrupt. I want Antoine to kind of show a little bit what she's doing here as best we can. Yeah. And I will explain, I do want to say there's some case numbers and there's some things that we might not be able to show every single thing here because this is a working unit still, but we're going to do the best we can. But I wanted Antoine to kind of show kind of what she's doing in here.
Yeah, so we have to, we get items of evidence, and what she's working on is an item of evidence that was collected from one of our deputies who's out on scene. Because we don't have enough crime scene investigators to respond to every single crime scene that happens in Orange County, we depend a lot on our detectives to process a lot of our crime scenes. When they do, it is their responsibilities to collect evidence. Sometimes the evidence they collect, they do not have the capabilities of processing themselves, so they submit it to our unit so that we can go ahead and process it for fingerprints and DNA, such as in this case, she will be collecting DNA from a hat to try to identify the owner of this hat.
And when you say collecting DNA, what is she doing?
She's taking swabs, sterile swabs, and rubbing it vigorously up against the brim of the hat in order to collect any skin cells that were left behind by the person who wore the hat.
Okay. And then after that, what's the next step? What happens after she's done the swabs?
She will place the swabs in what's known as a swab box. The swab box further protects the swabs. It allows them to air dry. That's an important step of DNA process because you want to make sure that DNA is dry. You don't leave moisture in there because if you do, it could degrade your DNA. Once that DNA is collected, she will then submit it to our state lab known as Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And Florida Department of Law Enforcement will then do the DNA analysis and give us any type of results that they've obtained from those swabs.
All right, so let's move on. Where can we show folks next?
So the next laboratory that we have is through these doors.
All right, and real quick, if you're just joining us, we're taking a tour of the forensics unit here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. We know a lot of students are at home and parents are at home and adults are at home, so we wanted to show off different parts of our agency. If you got a question, type it into the comments below. We'll do the best we can to answer them. Antoine, do we got any questions?
So far, what is the hardest part of your job?
What's the hardest part of your job, Vanessa?
The hardest part of the job has to do with maintaining all of the information. We don't work one case at a time as seen on CSI on TV. We can work multiple cases at one time. Each case is unique within itself. Each case needs its own types of follow-up that needs to be conducted. Maintaining that case, making sure that everything is done in a timely fashion is a huge time management skill that's needed for crime scene investigators, and that's probably the most difficult part, is making sure that all of that is being done in addition to your other duties.
You got any more? Any other questions?
Can someone with lung issues still be a deputy?
That's probably a question for you, Antoine. Yeah. I think it depends. I mean,
it depends.
I'm not a deputy, but I'll answer this as best of my knowledge. I believe you can because we actually have deputies here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. There's one, Jacob Stearns. He's missing a leg, and so it was amputated after he was injured in Afghanistan. And so I would say yes, but the caveat to that is you still have to pass the physical exams that we have. You still got to pass the the test that we do in the academy. So I think the answer is yes. It might just depend on your situation. Is that right, Antoine?
That is correct.
He's an actual deputy, and so he knows these things. All right, Vanessa, do we need our mask for this?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, do you need one? You want
got one.
Okay. So we got to put on a mask for this part of it. We'll do the best to talk as loud as we can. So, Vanessa, where are we headed right now?
The next lab that we're headed to, we refer to it as our chemistry lab because we do a lot of wet chemistry processing in this lab. Also in this lab, I have a short demo for you Boy Scouts that are watching. It's on chromatography because I know it's one of the topics that's listed for your badge.
Yeah, we know we had a lot of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts see this, and they've shared it, and so we hope a lot are watching, but we know that you have to do certain things to get badges and electives, and so we're trying to hit those as much as we can. I know one of them was visit the forensics unit at a sheriff's office or police station. And right now, really, you can't visit in person, but we're doing it virtually. So hopefully that sort of ticks off that box there. So you want to go in?
Yes.
All right, I got to put my mask on, right?
Yes, put your mask
All
on
right.
first.
So while we're putting the mask on, Vanessa, what do you do with evidence once the case is done?
So let's say a case has been solved or you've done all your part. What happens to the evidence then?
The evidence, as soon as a crime scene investigator is done with processing the evidence and it's been packaged and labeled correctly, then the evidence gets stored in an evidence warehouse where it's completely secured. If at that point it just waits to go to courts. If it has no court date or we're still pending a suspect being identified, it's a case that's constantly being reviewed to see if there's other leads that are generated while we wait for a suspect to be identified.
Can people get their evidence back ever? Or a
Once-
family or?
It all depends on how that evidence plays into the investigation. If you do have evidence that you're interested in, you'll have to contact the detective that's assigned to the case. If it's something that's integral to the investigation, it will not be released until court is done, and it will become at the discretion of the state attorney's office when it will be released and to whom it will be released to. In the time being, if it's something that's not integral to the investigation, there may be a possibility that it could be released, but again, it's based on a case-by-case scenario.
All right, let's go in. All right, go ahead, Antoine. So Vanessa, explain again, where are we now?
So this is our chemistry lab. The reason why we're wearing a mask is because there is a CSI behind us who is working on evidence and processing evidence. We want to, again, maintain the integrity of her case, especially her DNA. So we want to protect her evidence from our DNA. So we wear masks just to protect ourselves.
And you also said you have my DNA.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. Explain that a little bit.
We do have John's DNA on file because he has visited the forensics office quite often, and because he's such a frequent visitor, we have asked him to voluntarily give us a sample of his DNA, which he had. He's also entered our biology unit. Our biology unit you will visit in a short little bit. Anybody who goes through the thresholds of that biology unit must give a DNA sample. And since John has visited biology several times, he has provided us with his DNA.
Yeah, and hopefully I haven't committed any crimes, or at least none you can find out. I don't think so. All right, so what's going on here?
So,
Oh wait, you want to do that? You want to
yes.
do? Okay.
So one of the subjects for Boy Scout badge is chromatography. Chromatography is separating the components of an item. So in this case, what I did was I started off with a piece of filter paper, and the filter paper had a black line drawn on it with a marker. The marker, the black ink is composed of various colors, but every black ink is different. The chromatography process allows us to separate the inks to see what colors made that black color. So in this instance, my black marker is composed of blue, the yellow greenish color, and the pink fuchsia color. So it's not widely used. Chromatography isn't widely used in for inks in common day practices, but it is used for drug analysis to tell the chemist what kind of components are in a, let's say, baggie of white powder. So it allows them to identify the components that are inside that item.
So what, is this just plain water or?
This is plain water.
Okay.
This is a piece of filter paper, and it's just a water-soluble marker that was used. You may be able to find some experiments online on how to use it, or best materials to use when you do this experiment at home, if it's something you choose to do with your kids.
All right, so yeah, if you got to get part of your badge or your elective, you can do this experiment and check that box off.
Yes.
All right, Vanessa, so what's going on behind us here?
So behind us again, it's just another item of evidence that's being processed for DNA. Just since it's a different CSI, it's a different case, it's a different type of swab. They're separated into two different rooms so that one case isn't cross-contaminated with another case.
And Vanessa, this is an actual case, right? Or not? We're just sort of showing some things.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just showing off kind of what they do here in the forensics, but that's a lot of $100 bills right there.
Yeah.
So right now she's swabbing it for fingerprints?
For DNA.
For DNA. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. And then just like the other when you were swabbing it before, do you send it off to a lab somewhere or?
Yes. For most of our DNA processing, we do depend on the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to give us DNA results, especially when it comes to touch DNA, items that were touched, and we're trying to get DNA off of those items.
All right, and so I want you to come over here. Real quick, if you're just joining us, put some questions in the comment. We're taking a tour of the forensics unit here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. This is a new tool that we have here at the Sheriff's Office that is kind of unique because not a lot of Sheriff's Offices and police departments have this across the country. What exactly is Recover?
Recover is a latent fingerprint technology system that's came out to help us develop fingerprints off metal surfaces, metal items. The majority of the time we use it on spent cartridge cases. Spent cartridge cases are expelled from a firearm when a firearm is shot. That cartridge case, somebody has to hold it in order to load the weapon. Our hope is to develop fingerprints with a recover system off that fire cartridge case in order to identify the person who was in possession of that firearm when it was expelled.
And I've sort of seen this in action, and it's not just bullets, it's a lot of materials that aren't typically easy to get fingerprints off of, like metal pipes and fence posts and things like that.
It could be knives, anything that's composed of a metal.
Yeah, and if I recall how this kind of works is you put it inside sort of a cylinder right here, you hit a button, some gases come up, and about 3 hours later, you can see some fingerprints.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a brand new technology, and we're lucky to have it here at the Sheriff's Office here in Orange County. All right, where do you want to go next, Vanessa?
Next, we're going to go to the lab space. It's going to be a little bit of a walk.
All right.
Come on with us.
How about, do you have any questions, Antoine?
Sure, Vanessa, is your job fun?
Let's go out here so we can maybe take these masks off and we can answer that. So Vanessa, the question is your job fun?
Our job, yes. I do enjoy coming to work. I do enjoy my job a lot. It does have its days or its moments, but overall, it's very rewarding.
Yeah, I'm sure you see a lot of things that most average people don't see. Everybody in the office here. I mean, you know, I come to work every day. I do a lot of really interesting and fun videos about the Sheriff's Office, but I don't see the things that your unit sees, and so I'm sure it could be tough sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
All right, so let's keep going here. Any more questions, Antoine?
Vanessa, I have a question for you again.
Okay.
So what school did you attend?
I went to the University of Central Florida, and I have my bachelor's degree in forensic science and a master's in applied sociology.
So when you went to UCF, did you have an idea that this is what you wanted to do, to be a in forensics?
Yes,
Okay.
I knew I wanted to be in forensics. I wasn't quite sure of crime scene until I actually started doing it.
Okay. What made you sort of really like it?
The crime scene
Yeah.
part? Just that it's different. It's a good team building unit. We have to work together as a team. We're a very efficient team. We work together because we have to depend highly on each other to help each other out, whether it's a call in the middle of the night that we need help with, or we're on an umpteenth hour on a crime scene and just need to take a break. We need to depend on each other to have each other's back. And the type of relationships that we build in this unit are by far some of the closest ones that I've had throughout my lifetime.
And I think that's a good point. You know, things don't just happen between 9 and 5. I mean, I'm sure your unit goes out at all hours of the day.
Yes, we are available 365 days a year, all day long. We do not stop. There's always somebody on call.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop in the summertime either when it's 1,000,000 degrees outside.
Yes.
All right, let's head this way. So these are just more offices back here. There's sort of different parts to this unit, and we've showed you some. We're going to go back to the, where are we headed?
We're headed to our firearms laboratory.
Okay, so we're going to the firearms laboratory. If you like podcasts, we also do a podcast here at the Sheriff's Office called Behind the Star, and we did one recently on the Firearms Forensics Unit, and so we talked all about different firearms and why they have this, but we're going to show you the Firearms Forensics Unit here. All right, are we okay to come in?
We're going to stay at the threshold of the door.
Okay.
But if Antoine wants to take a look inside, we have one of our firearms specialists who is currently working on a case.
You want to say hello, Amanda?
Hi. So Amanda's main function is, as a firearms specialist, is every gun that comes in through the Orange County Sheriff's Office is routed to the forensics unit in order for us to determine whether or not it's NIBIN eligible. NIBIN is a database that's maintained by ATF, and it helps us connect shooting investigations, whether a gun was used at a crime scene, whether a gun was used at 2 different crime scenes. So it's a database that's very informative for the can provide a lot of information for our detectives in their investigation. Amanda will itemize the gun. She will document it, all the information off of it, and then she will also test fire it in our indoor range.
Can we show that?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to show you the indoor range. This is inside of our building here. I work on the 2nd floor. I've never heard a firearm go off, and so it must be very well soundproof. So we're going to show you this over here. So maybe, Vanessa, can you explain what we're looking at here?
Yes, this is our range. If Antoine wants to go inside and zoom to the right, the firearms specialist will stand behind the desk and point the firearm towards the back end of the range. There is water that normally falls to control the projectile and to capture the projectile. In this case, we don't have the water tank on right now, or the water flow on, because it's very loud and the range isn't being used right now. But this format, or this range, allows every single gun that's NIBIN eligible to be test fired, whether it be through Orange County Sheriff's Office or through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for NIBIN entry. The casings that are recovered from the test fired are imaged into that NIBIN system, and connections to either other cases or other weapons can be made.
Okay, so wait, I'm just going to scooch in here. So, like you said, normally there's water falling right here, but it's kind of loud and we want everybody to hear. So what happens is, like you said, Vanessa, they fire a firearm in here and then they get the casing. Is that the point?
Yes,
okay.
I'm going to have Amanda Vibert explain the process a little bit further for you.
Do you want to come in here, Amanda?
Sure.
Come on in.
Let me get.
Okay, she's gonna get a firearm so we can explain this a little more. Do you have any questions? Any more questions out there?
Do you often have to testify in court?
Okay, that's a good question. Do you ever have to testify in court? We'll ask while you're getting set up over there, Amanda. Do you ever have to testify in court, or does your team?
Yes, we do testify in court. We don't testify as frequently or as often as people think we do. Probably about anywhere from like about 5 times a year or so. Usually it involves major cases that we have to go testify to.
All right, real quick, we're going to take a hand sanitizer break. Put it out there. All right. All right. And we're trying to stay as far apart as we can here. But if you got any questions, type them in below. We're doing a live tour here of the forensics unit at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. If you're a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout and you got any questions, we'll try to answer them for you. And right now we're in the Firearms Forensics. Is it section or unit?
Unit's fine.
All right, we'll call it the Firearms Forensics Unit. And so Amanda, explain kind of what you're doing here. And I'm going to have Antoine go up here a little bit.
So every time we get a firearm into the agency that's NIBIN eligible that Vanessa had talked about, we are going to clear the firearm, make sure it came in clear. We're going to do a function test check of the firearm to make sure the firearm functions properly and safely. We will swab it for potential touch DNA, process it for potential fingerprints, and then we're going to conduct a test fire of the firearm. In that process, we're going to take 2 rounds of ammunition. We're going to load them into the magazine. Typically, we'll use the magazine that came with the firearm. If we need a magazine and there's not one, we have a reference collection and we'll use a lab magazine in order to do that. So we'll load the 2 rounds in. We'll load the magazine.
All right, we're just to warn you, we're not gonna fire a firearm here.
We're not going to fire. I would shoot 2 rounds down range. The projectiles would go down range. We're not worried about that portion of it. And then 2 cartridge cases, which are these, is what we're looking for. This is what Vanessa was talking about that would go into the NIBIN database. What I would do is then look at these 2, see which one has the best detail, and then I'm going to pick one of the 2 to enter into the database to see if it links to any other crimes.
And maybe just explain that real quick. I mean, what are they looking for in the shell casing, or what are they matching it to?
Okay, so on the shell casing here, there's a primer in the middle, which is hit by the firing pin of the firearm. Each firearm has a different type of firing pin impression, and then just kind of like a shoe wear impression where people walk differently on their shoes, the way a firearm is handled and utilized in the wear and tear of a firearm causes different unique individual characteristics that can go onto this little primer here. So we are looking at individual characteristics in the detail of the primer of this cartridge case that we're going to enter into the database. The database is going to look at those details and they're going to try to find any ones that they believe match it. Then we're going to do a visual examination to determine if we think it's a potential hit or not.
And you don't just fire handguns, it's a little bit of everything.
Yes, we can fire long guns in here. We fired AKs, we fired all kinds of rifles, all kinds of shotguns.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Amanda.
No problem.
All right, any questions for Amanda?
That was one of the questions. What is the largest caliber you can fire there?
The largest caliber we have fired in here would be a 50 caliber Desert Eagle. Those are pretty loud.
All right. Is that? I'm not a gun person. Is that something that like a military?
No, a Desert Eagle is actually a handgun pistol.
Oh.
I believe it's a little harder to conceal carry because it's pretty large, but it is considered a pistol, and it's just got a 50 caliber cartridge. This right here that I have in my hand is a 45 caliber cartridge, which is one of the larger ones and the more typical ones we shoot. A 50 is just, it's a little bit bigger than that, and it makes a good bang for your buck.
All right. So if you're interested more about the Firearms Forensics Unit, go to that podcast because we chatted for a half hour all about different firearms and what they do down here.
Yes.
And we had a good time.
We did.
I had a good time. I don't know if, all right, good. All right, so let's keep moving here. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you.
All right, what's this sticky thing for?
The sticky thing is just to keep the residues in the range and off of their feet.
Okay.
Traveling from inside the lab outside.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's like a blue sticky thing down here, so I was just curious. It's like a movie theater ground. It's like all sticky. So where are we headed next now?
It's good for stress relief.
Oh, okay. Where are we headed now, Vanessa?
We're gonna head over across the office to our biology lab.
All right. Come on, thank you so much,
No
Amanda.
problem. Enjoy.
For a walk.
Yeah, any more questions for our walk here?
One more for our firearms.
Oh, okay.
What type of training do you need to be a firearms specialist?
Amanda, another question for you. What type of training do you need to be a firearms specialist?
I started here as a crime scene investigator back in 2004. Pretty much all you need is to be a crime scene investigator. And then once you do an application process in the firearms section, there's an interview process and all. And then you'll get hands-on training in our firearms lab if you want to do firearms. So you have to start out as a CSI. Typically it's an internal position through our agency with the CSIs. They start out as a CSI, learn that, and then if there's a position in here, they can apply for that position and they'll get the hands-on training with us in this lab. And also the Florida Department of Law Enforcement helps us with that training as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda. All right. So we're going to keep walking here. We're headed to the biology part of this. Any more questions, Antoine?
And so far we have. Are you guys on call 24 hours a day?
Yes, we are on call 24 hours a day. We rotate our calls. So technically we have one crime scene investigator on call once or twice a week. We try to share the on-call status amongst ourselves. So it's not too bad of a burden, but there's always somebody in the office from 7 a.m. till midnight, and our on-call is from midnight to 7 o'clock in the morning.
So I know Orange County has about 1.3 million residents. Roughly, how many cases do you work a year?
The average crime scene investigator can average anywhere from 150 to 200 cases a year.
Really? And so how about as a unit? I mean, is it, thousands?
Oh yes, it's over.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're busy. You're a busy person.
Yes.
Your whole unit here is pretty busy.
Yes, we do not have to hunt for something to do.
Okay. All right. Well, keep following us. Like I said, if you're just joining us, we're here at the forensics unit here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. This is Forensics Supervisor Vanessa Nylander. She's being gracious enough to give us a grand tour of what we do here. If you missed yesterday's, we were out at the stables checking out the horses, so go check that one out as well. So this is sort of a different part of the unit down here. Where are we right now, Vanessa?
The area that we're in right now is called the Image Lab. The Image Lab is responsible for maintaining our photographs. So basically, we have kiosks set across all over Orange County because we are a very large county. So when a deputy takes a photograph out on a crime scene, or a CSI does, anybody who takes a photograph can upload their images onto our server. And our photo lab technicians, such as Gerardo Blosey back here behind us.
Hello. Hello. All right.
They're responsible for maintaining the chain of custody of those photographs, providing them to the detectives and or to the state attorneys that are assigned those cases.
So photographs. I mean, you said they come in from all over the county, different deputies. I know you have a staff of photographers, or at least a few that go out. What do the deputies send you? Are they taking them on their phones, or how do they get photos?
They can either take them on their phones or on cameras that are issued throughout the agency. They also can use supervisor phones or cameras. The format doesn't matter. The cameras right now, the cameras on your phone are just about as of quality as a pretty good point and shoot camera that you can find at the store nowadays. With our photo system, we can do mobile uploads from the laptop, so the deputies can upload their photographs from one case while responding to another case, so they don't have to respond back to the substation to take care of their photographs, and they can still continue working calls.
So let's talk about photos. So let's say there's a home invasion or a break-in, or let's say somebody wasn't home. I mean, the deputy, would they take a photo of the window or the door handle? Like, what are they taking photos of?
The way you should take crime scene photos is an identifier photo of where you're at. So like the outside of a house. If it was a house that was burglarized, the outside of the house, the numerics of the house, so you can differentiate that house from the neighbor's house.
You mean like their address?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Then walking in, as you walk into the house, the way, just so that you could see from the point of entry all the way to where things were touched. So if the point of entry was the bedroom, but the suspect made his way to the kitchen, and you can see areas that were ransacked throughout the house, you want to take photos of the point of entry. Maybe, let's say, if it was a broken window, maybe the glass debris that's on the ground below the window, and the point that the suspect would have traveled from that bedroom to the kitchen, any areas that were ransacked. Because it also helps, those photos also help when you go to write your report to say what areas you processed for latent fingerprints. You can refer back to those reports and give the reader a little bit of a pictorial image of what you're trying to convey in your report.
So if it was a more major crime, let's say a homicide, you would send CSI out there, or CSI?
Yes, all homicide investigations or crime scenes are processed by a crime scene investigator.
And so if they were sent out to take photos and collect evidence, like what are they concentrating on when it comes to photos?
Every square inch of that scene.
Okay, all right.
Yes, our goal is to photograph the scene as thoroughly as possible, showing the relationship between items, showing anything that may have been touched, moved, altered during the altercation or during the incident. We also have our 3D diagram system that will do a 3D scan of the scene, so that when we come back to the office, we'll be able to provide our detectives and or the state attorney with almost like a virtual tour
Yeah.
of the crime scene.
Talk about that. I've seen that. It's like a laser that goes out, right?
Correct.
Okay. And do
yes.
they tell everybody to kind of get away?
Yes, we do ask, because if you're in the scene, it's going to scan you into the scene. So we do have a reference that we have to have everybody stand behind that line or that reference point in order to keep a good, clear, crisp crime scene scan.
Yeah. And so you must just have thousands and thousands and thousands of photos somewhere stored.
We do. Yes, we do. We average probably about 10 to 15,000 photographs a month.
Oh, wow. All right. Yeah, yeah. And so you got to store those all on hard drives and networks and all that, too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because we don't want to lose those.
No, no.
All right. All right. So where do we want to go from here?
So from the image lab, we're going to go ahead, before we go to the bio lab.
I see an office over here.
Yes. that
Well,
was
we
my
won't go. We
office.
won't go into her office. This is
Yes.
Vanessa's office right here.
So before we go on to the bio lab, I do want to show you guys our newest addition to our forensics unit. We just spoke with firearms specialist Amanda Viber about the NIBAN database. Starting of November 2019, we now have a NIBAN database here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. So we can image fired cartridge casings directly into the database to make a connection. And we are currently in the process of being trained by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in order to make the connections to other cases ourselves. So this is something that we are currently working on and developing as one of our tools that we can use to help detectives resolve cases.
And this is new.
Yes, this is new as of November 2019.
Excellent. Any questions, Antoine?
So how long does it take to become a crime scene investigator?
That's a good question.
Well, once you get hired with the Sheriff's Office, we do an in-house in-service training program where it all happens here at the Sheriff's Office. And it's a 16-week program. The first 5 weeks is learning everything, every chemical, every process, every policy, how to use your camera, how to process a crime scene, everything in-house, and then we slowly build on going out to crime scene investigations. And at the end of your 16 weeks, you'll go out on your own, and a few months after that, then you'll go through mock assessments such as mock trials with the state attorney's office, with help from the state attorney's office, just to make sure you're a well-rounded investigator.
And I know you said you've been doing this 18 years
Yes.
here at the Sheriff's Office. Has your job changed a lot over those 18 years because of technology?
Oh yes, it has. When I started back in 2002, we depended highly on processing almost every surface for fingerprints. Now we have to make the decision whether or not a surface is going to be fingerprinted or swapped for DNA. Just technology is changing rapidly on what we can do, and that's one of the things as a crime scene investigator is you want to make sure you stay up with technology, with the research that's going on in the background, to make sure you're up to date on systems such as the Recover or the NIBAN program, to make sure that you're fully investigating your crime scenes.
What do you think is a big misconception that people have about forensics?
That a case can be resolved quickly. Cases take time. We could be out on a crime scene from a couple hours to 10, 11 days. The longest in my history here with the Sheriff's Office was an 11-day crime scene where the entire unit was out investigating that crime scene for 11 days. So it was a major scene, a large area to cover. We also had people from other agencies that were assisting us as well. So a lot of the times it's not a commercial break for us to...
Once again, it's not like CSI. We
Yes.
said this at the beginning. It's not like that at all.
Yes, it's not a commercial break where we can resolve the investigation very quickly. Also, it's not one investigation an hour. There could be multiple investigations going on, and we just have to make our full effort to make sure the evidence is getting to the laboratory in the amount of time it needs to, and try to manage the backlog as well as possible to make sure that every case is being resolved and treated with the same respect.
Any questions, Antoine?
Since you train on scene at the office, is there any type of schooling or degrees that we must have to apply for this position?
We talked about this a little bit, but yeah, go ahead. What are some of the degrees that you think people who want to work at CSI should get?
So for Orange County specifically, we do ask for a natural science, a degree in a natural science, such as biology, chemistry, forensic science, physics, anthropology. Any science-based course. There's also a lot of crime scene certificates that are out there now. Those go hand in hand with experience. But every agency is different, and a word of advice that I like to give out, especially when I do tours at high school and at elementary schools, is if you have a desire to be a crime scene investigator, but you have, let's say, a certain area that you want to stay in, whether it be Miami, Orlando, New York, call those areas and ask what their specific requirements are, because every agency is different.
Yeah, and that's really good advice. And the good thing is, at least with forensics, I'm sure there's agencies all over the country that do this. I mean, most do, and so they're always probably looking for people that can do this type of job. And so you made a good point. You know, if you want to live in Miami, you want to live in Orlando, you know, maybe you don't work for Orlando, but you work for Orange County, or maybe you work for Seminole County, which is close to Orange County. And so, you know, there's a lot of options. I know a lot of people do certain jobs. I used to be a news reporter, where, you know, it can be tough to find a job because you want to work in that big market. But here, with crime scene, you know, you can kind of go anywhere and do it and find a job, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
Yes. All right. So let's move on here. Where are we headed here now?
So this is the last leg of our tour. This is our forensics biology unit. We started the biology unit in 2015 as a screener's lab. So what we do, our goal is to help FDLE pre-screen items of evidence. So instead of us sending an entire item, like a shirt, to FDLE, we're only sending them swabs or a cutting from the shirt, a specific source of DNA. Instead of bogging down the system and having FDLE process the entire item, we process the item and we submit the swabs to them in order or in hopes of getting our DNA results back a little bit faster.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So instead of sending them the suitcase full of clothes,
Correct.
you just send them the swabs.
Correct.
All right.
So,
Cuts down on a shipping bill too, maybe.
Yes.
So once again, this is a secure part. You got to have your key cards. They don't let people like Antoine and I just back here to wander around.
yes, so this is our biology lab. We are going to stay outside of the lab. We do have our evidence that's ready to be processed. So what we do is we lay out our items of evidence. The labs are limited to only the biologists that come in to process the evidence. Anybody who enters this lab will have to get a DNA swab collected. The swabs from John and Antoine had been collected earlier today. We also have to gown ourselves in our PPE or our protective equipment just to protect ourselves and our evidence from our DNA. We don't want to have mixtures of DNA present. In addition, everybody who works in the forensics unit also provides samples of their DNA as well. In the background that you see behind Andrea is our new rapid DNA system called Andy. What Andy has allowed the biology unit is to take our processing one step further For single sources of DNA, such as blood and saliva, we can run an ANDI in order to expedite the DNA results to the detectives. Now, how we apply this is there's certain crime scenes that have multiple areas of blood, such as a homicide. There may be a blood trail and there may be multiple people who are bleeding. We use ANDI to help us sort through multiple swabs of blood that are collected on a crime scene to see if we can identify more than one person's DNA through the ANDI system. That way we submit the unknown DNA, or the DNA we suspect came from our suspect, to FDLE, and FDLE is the one who will do the conventional DNA analysis and give the confirmation as to who that DNA possibly belongs to.
Great, great. All right, are we all good here? We got. Are there other parts that we need to see, or you want to show off something here?
Oh, this is just Andrea. She's going to swab the shirt for wearer DNA. So one of the things that we could do is, like I said earlier, we have various sources of DNA that are available. It's not only from like blood and saliva. DNA also comes off of skin cells. One of the things that she's going to try to do right now is swab the shirt for wearer DNA or skin cells that are left behind on clothing items by the person who wore it. So she's going to try to identify the wearer of the shirt by collecting DNA from areas that we know came in contact, such as the collar line or the armpit area.
So how long does this process take?
It depends on the size of the item that we're swabbing, but she will just vigorously swab anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes along the collar line and, as stated before, the armpit area.
And then after she's done, you'll send this off to the lab. It's in Tallahassee, correct?
Well, we actually are fortunate that our lab is 15 minutes down the street.
Oh, that makes it convenient.
Yes, it's located in downtown Orlando, so we're able to hand deliver our swabs, if needed, to the lab for processing.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you. All right, we're going to come back out here, maybe answer some more questions. I think that sort of wraps up like the tour part, but I want to ask some more questions. Actually, no, I'll throw it to Antoine. Any specific questions we got?
Do you ever travel out of the city for a crime?
That's a good question. We'll say the county. You ever travel out of the county for crime?
We've assisted other agencies in some of their crime scene investigations, such as when we need help, we have mutual aid with other agencies that we can go help and assist with. There have been instances where we've had to fly out to recover evidence from other agencies or other jurisdictions, but a lot of the times it's something that the detective can handle. If not, we can tag along if needed.
You said you've helped other counties. Is that just because we're a larger county and we have more sort of technology than maybe Osceola or Volusia, or is there another reason for it?
A lot of the times it's just, it could be helping out maybe with the ANDI system or the Recover system, just since it's technology not everybody has that we can offer our services in that aspect, or also with crime scene investigations that are large and just need extra people because they're physically exhausting too, because that's one of the things with crime scene is that it's not only mentally challenging, but it's also physically challenging. You're on your feet constantly, and if you have a large area to cover, you may not have the personnel to cover that area, so you may request assistance from other agencies just to help.
So actually, that leads me to another question I wanted to ask you. You mentioned the physical, but the mental part of it. I mean, I'm sure you and your staff have seen things that the average person just doesn't ever see, nor do they want to. How do you process that?
Like said earlier, we just have a very good support system here. We have all come together. We have activities that we do together, whether it's eating lunch that day, going out to dinner together, going to the gym. We're very fortunate that we have a gym here at Ops, and it's a pretty large, big gym, and they offer various classes. One of the classes that we like to take is the Zumba class. Just a way of releasing our energy, inside energy. We also have strong bonding relationships. And for instance, myself, I just come from a very good family that just tends to listen very well. They know when I need to vent, when I need to release. I also do a lot of running.
Okay.
Or that's like another escape, and that's something that the sheriff's office encourages is exercising, because they know that's a good thing to release the stress, release the tension from a strong, stressful day.
Is that something they teach you in school, that, okay, when you become a crime scene investigator, you might see, you know, murder victims and homicide victims and gruesome things? I mean, do they teach you how to process that, or do they just sort of teach you the steps on how to do it, and then you have to kind of worry about the mental part of it?
They forewarn you, but like if anything else, you don't know how the person's going to respond to it until they see it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of know what you're getting into when
Yes.
you become a CSI and here in forensics, but you know, studying something in a book and seeing photos is probably much different than seeing it live in front of you.
Yes, there are more senses involved when you see it in front of you versus if you see it in a book.
Once again, we won't get into the gruesome details, but we've also done a podcast, if you want to go and check that one out, with some CSI, some investigators, and that was one of the questions that came up, and one of the answers was, you know, yeah, you have to see a lot of things that are really gruesome, but you don't think about, here in Florida, it can be 100 degrees outside, and when you go to investigations, the person, they may have been outside for a week before we get to them, or
Yeah.
before we discover them, and we still have to go out there and check it out, and you know, bodies decompose, and
Yes.
so yeah, you can see those things in a book, but you know, the other senses, as you say, might overwhelm you.
Yes, yes. And every case is different, every scene is different. You look at it as a scientist,
Yeah.
or as an object versus as a person. There's no physical relationship between you and that person. So you see it more of a physical versus more of a person.
Yeah.
So that helps, but
So what motivates you and other people in your staff? What keeps you going? What keeps you wanting to do this job?
personally for me, it's the safety of our community. Whether it's the safety of our community for my own family members, my own children, my own husband, or my in-laws, my parents themselves, or anybody in our system, in our community. If we can make a safer community by resolving these cases, it's just going to be better for us.
Any more questions, Antoine? We got a few questions. We got a few more minutes here.
Sure. What was the longest time you've had to take on a crime scene?
For our agency, our longest one in my history here was 11 days.
Mm-hmm. And what's the average length for a crime scene?
It could be 10, 15 hours, or some cases could roll over to the next day, just depending on the extent of them.
Okay. All right. Any more? Another question?
Sure. And what was the longest time you've ever taken to solve a crime?
So is there something that maybe happened years ago and then we solved it 20 years later, or what's the longest?
Yes, the longest that I've been involved in is a 20-year-old case that we just resolved this past year.
Can you talk about that case a little bit? Or not? If not, it's okay.
A little bit. It was a sexual assault that occurred over 20 years ago.
Okay.
And we were able to resolve it with DNA technology and offer the victim closure on the case 20 years later. Other than that, there are cases that do go cold after a while. We try our hardest to revisit them. It's one of the things that I'm tasked with and that forensics is tasked with, is looking at those cases. Is there new technology that we can apply to these cases that maybe will create a lead for us that wasn't available when the case first happened?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like you said, you know, first of all, we don't stop looking for people that have done bad things. And sometimes these things take time, but you're right. I think technology really helps with that. Things that didn't exist 20 years ago, or 18 when you started, they're around now, and so we can use that. And like you said, you go back and do the best you can and try to look for links and evidence that can help solve crimes today.
Correct.
All right. Another question, Antoine?
Sure. In a crime scene, how many CSIs responds to a crime scene?
So yeah, call comes in. How many people go out to investigate it?
When a call comes in, we actually have one person who goes out to the regular crime scene. If it's a homicide, we have a minimum of 2 and a supervisor. If it's also with a deputy involved shooting, we do the same thing. But on average, the crime scene can usually be taken care of by 1 individual. If it's an extensive crime scene, whether there's more than 1 scene that needs to be investigated or a lot occurred, then they can always call for additional help. But the majority of our cases are handled by 1 investigator.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. And if you don't have one off the top of your head, that's fine. Are there any cases over your career that you're really proud that you got to be a part of and maybe solved or helped solve?
There is one that, well, there's quite a few that stick out, but the main one that stuck out to me was a sexual assault that occurred of an elderly female, and we were able to identify the suspect in about 8 hours, just because we were able to use our communication skills very well between the detective, the other CSI that was helping out. We just all came together, you know, technology of our phones, being able to FaceTime each other, being able to talk to each other, be able to reach real-time feedback of what each other were seeing at the various scenes. We were able to develop a fingerprint, have that fingerprint hand-delivered to the latent examiner, and he had a suspect identified within a couple hours. I responded back to the scene, to the office from the scene, and I was being called saying we already had an identification back to a possible suspect. That was very rewarding, very fulfilling. I wish more cases could be resolved that quickly. Hopefully with technology. They may be, but it's cases like that that just make you know that you're on the right track.
Good, good. Okay, Antoine, one last question. This is our very last question for this live stream.
A tour. Can anyone come in for a tour?
Okay, good question. Can people come tour this? Probably not right now because of coronavirus and COVID-19, but can people come tour this?
We limit our tours. The best situation or the best ability would probably be to wait for all of this coronavirus to slow down a little bit, because we usually open the tours for 1 Friday a month at a specific time if we get a lot of interest on it. We don't do job shadowing. We will do internships if you are a college student that needs internship credits to fulfill your college requirements. It's all stuff that could be done. Just have to call our HR services and they'll help you out.
We have recently done some events with the Girl Scouts, correct?
Correct.
Can you talk about that real quick?
Yes. One of our captains, Captain Santana, developed a patch and a program for the Girl Scouts to earn in forensics. It's called Fun with Forensics. You'll come to the sheriff's office. We offer it every 3 months on either a Saturday or a Sunday. It'll only take about 2.5 hours. You'll get a little mock crime scene. You'll get to do hands-on demonstration, and the results that you get from your demos, you'll able to solve your mock crime scene that we started with. It's a very, very fun.
I've seen the photos. It looks like a lot of fun.
Yes.
All right, Vanessa, thank you so much for giving us the tour. Like I said, we might not be doing these tours for a while, but you got a live tour, so you can maybe rewatch this. But thank you so much. Thanks to everybody who tuned into this. We're going to try to keep doing these. We're going to try to do some next week as well. So if you got an idea of what we should go look at, put it in the comments below. And like I said, if you missed the one yesterday at the Mounted Patrol Unit, go check that one out. And share this one if you know anybody who's interested in forensics. And thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.